Warning. The Outsider's Edge contains strong opinions, unconventional views, and contrarian stances. Listen, if you dare.
Hey yo! Everybody, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of The Outsider's Edge. Today my brother in arms, Karl, got some family stuff to attend to. So the Golden Lovers are going to take over The Outsider's Edge for today. It's a little reversed. Normally Outsider's Edge are taking over other stuff, but the Coda Ibushi to my Kenny Omega, my brother Kyle Morris is with me. What's happening, bro?
Thank you so much for having me. Shout out to Karl for letting me step in. Sorry you couldn't be here to join us today.
Yeah, Kyle is like the sixth man on deck for all social suplex. So
yeah, anytime somebody gets hurt, I just get called in to swoop in and take their place real quick. I don't hate it.
Hashtag get Kyle the show. So we got a few things we want to talk about. And I was gonna call this the free agent show because we have a lot of stuff not WWE to talk about today. We're gonna do some WWE quick hits at the end, but my brother was like we should call it the Golden Lovers episode because that's what we are. Alright, I'm good with that. But we are gonna talk about, like I said, our major topics are gonna be non WWE stuff, and so that's big for me because this is a WWE podcast. But we gotta start with NXT, more specifically NXT UK. Before we even go any further, did you watch the shows?
Wow. Just that's all I can say about the shows is just wow. That was some great nights of wrestling right there.
Now see, before I kind of lead in the topic, I'm not a big proponent of tournaments. I'm not a big fan of them because they really tend to be repetitive. It's always the same stories that are told, and I've been very vocal that I'm a much bigger fan of the storytelling and the extraneous things in wrestling than the in-ring product. Not that I don't love it, but I just don't love it as much as the rest of the stuff. But the reason I love the WWE Network tournaments like the Mae Young Classic, the Cruiserweight, the UK, stuff like that is because it introduces you to people you've never known before. And you are effectively, whereas like if you were to get a new wrestler on the main roster for any company, you would have vignettes. Here, you effectively are being introduced to them by their matches. And like so the second you saw Zach Gibson and watched him wrestle, you knew what he was about. Or Flash Morgan Webster, I don't know what mob culture is. I'm from Houston. But the second you see him, you get it. So these shows were amazing, man. So I want to talk about the shows with you for a minute, but I also want to ask you. Um, Triple H has talked about his global localization plan, right, to kind of expand NXT and kind of make NXT, WWE of course, but specifically NXT, kind of like an NWA type deal, where you have your performance centers and your branches in different areas of the world. And a lot of people don't like that.
It makes sense. It makes sense when you think about how Triple H came up through the business, though.
Sure, he came up in the territory area.
He was part of that last generation to really experience the territory era.
Absolutely.
And he books NXT with a lot of those same tropes.
Absolutely.
That we used to see during the territory era.
He books it like it's an old NWA WCW show.
Yes, and so it makes a lot of sense that that's what he would want.
Sure, and I'm a proponent of it only because it's only going to mean more wrestlers and more popular wrestlers, which means the business is better because if you make it or if you don't, it's more people in the fray to work, right? So I want to know what you think about the whole NXT UK brand because it's official. Their tapings are next month, and where it's going, and kind of give me your thoughts on the show, man. Like, what did you think of the shows?
Well, I'll start with the brand. I'm really torn
Okay.
on it. I like the idea of more of these markets having access to shows. Not as much the UK in terms of they've got a thriving independent wrestling scene, but some of these other areas that Triple H would be interested in expanding in that maybe don't yet have
India,
thriving wrestling.
India, the Middle
Uh,
East, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Places that don't necessarily already have that kind of a thriving industry. I think it's great for them to have more opportunities, and to be able to try that. On the other hand, I am a teacher of United States history. That is what I do for a living. I teach high school. One of my favorite time periods in American history to study and to talk about is the late 1800s, early 1900s, a time period called the Gilded Age. And one of the problems of that time period is monopolies and how dangerous monopolies are at that time, for workers and consumers. I am not a huge fan of the idea of WWE taking over wrestling everywhere.
Okay.
Because I think that a lack of competition will lead to creative stagnation. And I worry about what that would mean for the future of the business. I think people would lose interest.
Can I stop you right there? Because I want to ask you a follow-up question before we get any further.
Yes.
Um, you're more versed in this subject than me because this is your expertise, right? This is gonna sound really ignorant, but I'm sure you'll understand what I mean. In the entertainment field, can there truly be a monopoly? Because and,
Oh,
and I say that because don't you think that this there's no major competition, sure, but aren't they effectively becoming their own competition?
so to answer your question, in the entertainment field, can there be a monopoly? Absolutely. The entertainment field realistically is a series of, it's not really a monopoly. The entertainment field is really like an oligarchy, which is a
Okay.
fancy way of saying a few small company or a few large companies run everything.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely the case right now. In the United States, for example, pretty much everyone in the United States has all of three, maybe four options for internet. And in each individual city, you've really only got two.
Yeah.
You've got whichever one of Comcast or Spectrum is available in your market,
Yeah.
and you've got
AT&T.
AT&T.
Yeah.
That's it. And those companies are not just internet providers. Comcast is owned by
The
Universal,
Universal. Yeah.
and so that's its own mega media market.
Media
Um,
conglomerates.
Media conglomerate. Spectrum is owned by AOL Time Warner,
Yep.
which is currently being bought out by AT&T.
All of Fox's movie and TV assets just got not TV, movie assets just got bought by
All
Disney
of
for
the TV,
71 billion.
all of the TV assets except for
News and sports.
Fox News and Fox News and some of the broadcast and Fox Sports One.
Okay.
All of Fox's regional sports networks now owned by ESPN and ABC.
That's right, because that was contingent on the deal. Yeah. So
All region and within that, all of their intellectual property that's being currently aired on the Fox network is now going to be owned by other people because as part of the deal to buy 20th Century Fox, Disney owns Family Guy, The Simpsons,
God.
like all of that stuff
So they
is
really
now.
own everything. We worry
And
about WWE. Y'all need to be worried about Disney.
no, that's not it. That's not even a joke. Disney is like a dangerous entertainment monopoly. They are the like second or third biggest entertainment company in the world, and it's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there absolutely can be monopoly in the entertainment industry. As far as can it be its own competition, um, in theory it can be, but WWE doesn't generally promote it that way. Like
This
they
is
don't
true.
promote NXT as a competition to the main roster. They promote it as like the extended universe. Like
Which it is.
like the main roster is canon and everything that happens on the network is the extended universe.
That's a fair way to look at it because Just recently, it was a bit controversial that they're not announcing Sanity as former NXT Tag Team Champions, and that's not the biggest of deals to me. But I think they're doing that to effectively make Sanity seem like a more uh, a, a bigger threat, more ominous, if you will. Because I guess the thought process is, and I'm just thinking, I'm really jumping now, but how can Sanity be as ominous if they had to go through the feeder system and go to the PC 4 times a week? Instead of being this group of guys that just kind of appeared. And I know it's really stupid to think of it that way, but Vince
All
thinks
I'm
of
gonna
things in
say
this
is
way.
all I'm gonna say is if that's what Vince is worried about, he better hope that none of Eric Young's TNA work ever sees the light of a WWE screen. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a fan of Eric Young and you have not seen his TNA work between 2002 and about 2010, oh, the laughs you are in for.
Well, he is formerly one half of the women's tag team champions.
Yes, he was a former TNA Knockouts champion with ODB,
Yeah,
who he kayfabe married, and then kayfabe left to do an animal show because he was hosting a show for Animal Planet. My favorite Eric Young is still 2003 TNA. He did an angle where he was paranoid that they were trying to fire him. And
yes.
would randomly show up in the crowd in the middle of the show with these posters, because this is when everybody
Don't
still brought
fire
signs
Eric.
to the ring, and it was "Don't fire Eric." And he would,
Yeah.
middle of matches, he would jump the guardrail with his "Don't fire Eric" sign.
I think my favorite Eric Youngism is when he was in Team Canada. Every time they would come out, he would always be terrified by the pyro.
Yes,
It would just scare the hell out
yes.
of him, and like he knew it was coming, but it just scared the hell out of him every time. Yeah, see
Uh,
the fond memories of TNA.
yes. I mean, honestly, the serious character that he portrays now was first in TNA. That was when he first became TNA World Champion.
World Elite. Yeah.
He did an angle with Bobby Roode, and the whole thing was how he's finally snapped. And
Yeah.
Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky Eric went goodbye, and Psycho Crazy Eric came
If
to
there's
the
a
forefront.
if there's a wrestler that definitely earned every penny that they made from TNA, it's Eric Young because he did everything there. But we've really kind of strayed. I want to get back to NXT. It is my fault. I'm sorry. I want to get back to NXT UK. Yes, there is the fear of a monopoly happening, but if I may use the analogy in sports, and I know it's not the same, but I'm sure you know I'm going with this. In the NBA, there's this fear of super teams, right? That kind of started with the Celtics when they got Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett, but it really manifested when LeBron and Chris Bosh decided to take their talents to South Beach, right? So there was this
Yeah.
fear that players don't want to have their own teams; they want to team up, make it easier. No, most notably recently with Kevin Durant leaving a team that he was up 3-1 on to go to the team that they lost to in Golden State that had already won a championship prior.
Had already won a championship with a homemade super team.
Absolutely homemade. So I don't consider it a super team.
Curry, Thompson, and Green were all drafted by the
Right.
Golden State Warriors.
Andrew and Harrison Barnes was drafted. Andrew Bogut was traded for their best player at the time. So it was
Yep.
truly and they got Andre Iguodala on a cheap deal to get him away from Denver. So like it was really truly built from scratch. But so I bring that up to say this, and we're going around the world. So for those of you listening, I'm sorry, just bear with us. I say all that to say this, which has become my catchphrase, apparently. Um, I think super teams in the NBA are good for the league and not bad for the league, and I say that because it forces teams to realize you have to be on your shit, right? A lot of teams used to be able to just the Atlanta Hawks, right? For years in the 90s, they just won 45 games, and that was good.
You're preaching to the choir. I grew up in Charlotte. I'm a Hornets fan.
So there
I
you go.
understand a commitment to mediocrity.
Yes, it was in that entire even when they left and came back, that entire franchise has been about mediocrity for the most part. They've had flashes of brilliance, but for the most part, right?
Chris Paul let him slip through their fingers.
Yeah, there you go. Um, so so now you see teams like Philly. Now you
Is
see,
your argument.
yeah. So now you see teams like Philly that have switched the game, and yeah, they had to endure a
The
shit ton of losing.
process.
The process. But look at them now. They're on the verge of becoming a dynasty. I'm not saying that everybody that's what you need to do, but there are different ways to go about this, right? The only way to win is not just signing somebody. Find other ways to become great. Golden State did. So I say that going to other companies, New Japan or Ring of Honor or Lucha Underground or MLW has TV now, just in Impact, but these other companies, you're never going to compete with WWE in terms of market share or popularity or any of these things. But New Japan has proven over these past 3 years that you can take a a a portion of the fan base that feels underserved by what you do best. New Japan is not trying to be WWE. And if they do, that's when they're going to fail. TNA has failed or Impact because they tried to be WWE. When you become your own thing and stay your own thing, that's when you become viable. So it's a monopoly in the financial sense, sure, but in terms of fan bases, yeah, WWE is always going to be the most talked about. But I feel like New Japan and Ring of Honor in particular have a very strong interest from fan bases. So coming back to NXT UK and these uh, theater systems, if you will, think about this. Um, they formed NXT UK, but Progress and ICW still are in business, and they're not taking away from them. They're working with them and possibly going to put them on the network.
And based on the argument that you're making, if those companies continue to have good working relationships with an NXT UK, I could be more on board with it. Because my bigger concern would be we get to a point where all of these guys will use NXT UK as our example, these guys that we just saw in the tournament. My bigger concern for the UK's thriving independent scene would be, what if WWE decides, okay, well, fine, if you work NXT UK, you can't work Progress anymore. You can't work IC.
That's a definite fear. That's a definite fear.
And if it gets to that, then I have much more of the monopolies are bad because a lack of competition is not good for the consumer.
Sure.
But if they continue to have these working relationships with companies, I'm more open to it. And there are a lot of signs that they will, because Hunter, first and foremost, loves wrestling.
Absolutely.
Yes, the WWE homer, because he will never bite the hand that feeds. He married into the family, but he loves wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
He is a fan of wrestling. He wants wrestling to be successful.
He's an old school guy, and we can say he's a Vince disciple, which he is, but he's really kind of a Dusty disciple too.
Mm-hmm. And he's done enough things with some of the indie promotions, like having their superstars at Access,
WWE Evolve,
having Adam Cole defend the North American title at
Evolve 107
Evolve show.
Yeah,
so like
Hideo Itami is going to Pro Wrestling Noah for Marufuji's 20th anniversary.
Yes, even though we all know that they are partnering up with Noah now as their answer to try to break into that New Japan monopoly.
Hey, reasons for business it's just getting the job done. It don't matter the reason.
Right. And you know what? Noah needs all the help they can get, because Noah just, everything New Japan does well, Noah does not, in my opinion. But that's just me. I'm not a Noah fan. I'm sure there are Noah fans out there. If Noah is your thing, rock out. Not for me. But I think that's a good segue. One thing that you said, I think, is a good segue into, we had wanted to discuss Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
And you had talked about how the day that New Japan stops trying to be their own thing is the day that they fail. And how Impact fails perpetually because Impact is perpetually trying to be something it's not.
Yes.
I think that Ring of Honor is in the middle of an identity crisis.
Okay. Hey, man, you've been waiting to say this on air, so by all means, take it over.
All right. only thing I want to preface before I rant about Ring of Honor is I am an Honor Club subscriber. I've been to every Ring of Honor show in Atlanta in the last 2 years because Atlanta's just a couple-hour drive from me. It's real easy for me to get there. I want Ring of Honor to be a successful company.
You were going to go to Supercard of Honor before you hurt your knee.
Yes, I went to Supercard of Honor last year when the Young Bucks and the Broken Hardys tore the house down in a great ladder match. I was going to go to Supercard this year before I hurt my knee and had to have surgery. I want Ring of Honor to be a successful company. Fuck you, Sinclair. You are shitting all over this company. Multi-billion-dollar cable industry. Owned Fox stations all across the country. You air your wrestling product at midnight on Saturdays, if you air it at all. You don't promote it at all. Fun fact, y'all, there's a Ring of Honor pay-per-view tonight. Fun fact, you probably didn't know that because they don't advertise.
We're going to talk about that too, by the way. Yeah. Because it's a pretty big match that's on that show, on the card.
Yes, it should be a good show.
Yeah.
Women of Honor. Let me go in on Women of Honor for a second. Ring of Honor had a Women of Honor system for a good 2 years, but didn't put that shit on their main show.
Yeah, it was just only internet.
I remember last year at Supercard, the pre-show was a couple of Women of Honor matches.
It was the pre-show on this Supercard, except for the title match.
They didn't start putting the Women of Honor, giving them their own belt and putting them on TV until after WWE made this big deal about a women's revolution and making women's wrestling a bigger deal. Then all of a sudden, Ring of Honor decided to start dick riding and said, oh, yeah, we got women too. We'll put our women out there. I'm all for women's wrestling getting more of a spotlight. That's not what I mean at all. But what I mean is, what the fuck is this? You had this program for years and don't even bother to put your women on it until your competition that you're constantly trying to say you're not trying to be like starts putting the women on, and then all of a sudden you got them front and center. Make a big hype about Tennille Dashwood debuting for the company because, surprise, surprise, where'd she used to work?
Formerly known as
Emma, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah, but she is. That's how she's introduced. She's Tennille Dashwood, formerly known as Emma, not just Tennille Dashwood. Yeah,
exactly. And so this is a company. Let's talk about All In. Let's talk about All In.
Because me and you have had this conversation.
I have a couple things to say on this one.
Okay.
So, Being the Elite sold out a 10,000-seat arena in a half an hour with the only announced match being announced 20 minutes before tickets went on sale.
And it wasn't a match. It was
just a
title will be defended.
Yeah, that Nick Aldis will defend the NWA Championship at the show. Sold out a 10,000-seat arena in less than an hour. Mm-hmm. Not because they did anything fancy. They didn't reinvent the wheel. Old school wrestling promotion. Characters creating storylines that they marketed out. Sold out a 10,000-seat arena. The New Japan's about to run this big show in the Cow Palace. I think they're still 1,000 seats or so short of a sellout, but still 9,000-seat arena for a company that airs shows in the U.S. a couple times a year, if that, and just started doing so. Meanwhile, Ring of Honor can't even get a fucking date at Madison Square Garden.
We've talked about that on this show too.
Financed All In, but won't call it Ring of Honor All In because Ring of Honor can't sell 10,000 seats. Cody and the Young Bucks can sell 10,000 seats. Ring of Honor can't. And next year, when Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks debut at the Royal Rumble, Ring of Honor will lose a huge part of their cash cap. Because that shit's coming, y'all. Money talks. They've done everything there is to do in New Japan, and money talks.
Okay, so I want you to breathe for a second. for the record, if there's any show that loves rants, it's this one. So I love that. But the best part about it is you echo things I've echoed a lot. The all-in thing we've talked about ad nauseum on this show. Me and you have talked about ad nauseum in person. But I want to get more into. You've talked about a lot of macro things. I want to get more into some micro issues with Ring of Honor because I mean I don't have. I'm in Texas, but I don't have. I'm not. I don't have a Sinclair stations. The only way I know to watch Ring of Honor is on Fight TV. And that's sad that it's easier to watch it on internet app than on television, but we've kind of covered that. But I do want to get to, especially with the show. If you're listening to this, if I put it out today, it'll be Thursday. If you're listening tomorrow, it'll be that night. Pay per view, one of their bigger pay per views of the year. But I do want to get to some micro issues. For example, you and I have talked a lot about their lack of star power.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they have star power, but their stars do most of their work in New
Outside
Japan, outside of the company. Um, let's talk about Dalton Castle for a second. Dalton Castle, if you don't know, and I'm sure some of you don't know, is the 6 month now going Ring
Yeah,
of
he's
Honor
at the
World
belt for a
Champion.
while.
Yeah, beat Cody at Final Battle, and but like I said, most of you don't even know that. Um, and speaking of that big match we were talking about, Dalton Castle is defending in a triple threat match to at what is it, Best in the World?
Best of the world. Yep.
Best in the World against Cody and Marty Scurll. He beat Cody for the title at Final Battle in December, and Marty uh, lost to him.
Unsuccessful challenge.
Yes, at Supercard.
Yes.
So that's the main. That's your headliner. So let's talk about their kind of main event scene because when me and you talk about it personally, we've mentioned that they have a lot of meat. They have a lot of really good guys in the mid card. Punch Martinez just won the TV title, and the Kingdom is a great act, and SCU they're not they're around like they're great
Mm.
wrestlers and they're around, but they're not really pushed to the level at which they possibly could be. And you got the gamut of guys who fought for the TV title for like a year and a half, and Kenny King, Silas Young, and Cheeseburger, and Shane Taylor, and you got a lot of guys right there in that middle area, right? But that main event level, what do you think is their biggest issue with finding main eventers?
They've got a couple of issues. Some they can control, some they can't. One of the
Okay.
issues they can't control is because they're, to use a sports analogy, they're a mid-major.
Okay.
They're not a power conference. They're a mid-major.
They're George Mason.
And so because of that, one of the problems that Ring of Honor has that they can't control is when their stars get to a certain level, their stars leave for WWE. Kevin
Okay.
Owens,
Yeah.
Daniel Bryan,
Yeah.
CM Punk.
But that is a different generation though.
Kevin Owens really isn't. Not if you think about it.
No, not tremendously, but I guess
Young
I'm thinking
generation.
about
Roddy
guys.
Strong,
Okay, there you go. That's more this generation. Roddy Strong
Adam
is more
Cole.
Adam Cole. Okay, yeah. See, that's more I'm thinking of, like more like currently O'Reilly and Bobby Fish.
Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish.
Yeah.
Adam Cole fought Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish for the Ring of Honor World title for a good portion of last year.
Didn't he? Didn't Adam Cole fight Kyle O'Reilly at Wrestle Kingdom just 2 years ago?
Yes.
Okay,
For the Ring of Honor World Championship.
that's what I thought.
Yes. So like that's something that they're not really able to control at present because Sinclair, and I'm going to put this on the ownership group. Sinclair doesn't really care if Ring of Honor gets that much bigger as a company because it's not their moneymaker. It's just a thing that they own. And so when guys get to a certain point in their career where they've achieved what they set out to achieve, they dip and they go to greener pastures. Or sometimes they leave and they don't go to WWE. Sometimes they leave and just go full-time at New Japan. Michael Elgin is a good example of someone who just decided to do more full-time New Japan stuff.
Yeah.
You see it with some of the Bullet Club guys. Hangman Page and Marty Scurll are starting to do an awful lot of stuff over in New Japan.
Hangman is in the G1.
Yeah, Hangman's in the G1. He had a big program with Switchblade Jay White, like
Yeah.
that, and so that they can't control.
Yeah.
But one thing that they can control is they don't do a good job of striking when the iron is hot.
Okay.
Dalton Castle was, if they were going to make Dalton Castle champion, they should have made him champion before they did, and he should have dropped the belt by now.
Now that I agree with.
Especially after Supercard, although I would argue that they set him up to fail at Supercard.
Oh, absolutely.
If you did not see Supercard of Honor, the biggest match at Supercard of Honor, and the match that everybody who bought the ticket to see, was Kenny Omega versus Cody.
Bought the pay-per-view. I bought the pay-per-view. So,
yeah. Everybody who wanted to see Supercard bought it for Cody and Kenny.
Yes.
But that match did not go on last.
It did not.
They put the World Championship on last. And
After a 5-hour show, by the way.
I respect prioritizing your world title and saying that it's the biggest thing. I respect that. But the billboard for the show was Kenny and Cody. Like, that was on the actual marquee.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the main event. And putting Marty and Dalton Castle on after that set both of them up to fail because the crowd was spent.
So this is like Rock Hogan and then putting on Jericho Triple H last.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Everybody paid to see Rock and Hogan. By the time Jericho and Triple H came out there, everybody was tired.
Yeah. And again, I want to reiterate, we talk a whole bunch of shit about WWE and how long their shows are. This was 5 hours.
Yes.
No pre-show, just 5 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
And 5 hours of a lot of high impact stuff because Hangman Page and Kota Ibushi had a pretty crazy physical match on that card.
The Bucks and Flip wrestled SCU and the Kingdom. Or was it just SCU? It was just
I
SCU.
think it was SCU.
Because the Kingdom came from under the ring. Yeah. That was a crazy match. Yeah. Ishii fought Punishment Martinez. Like, it was a really stacked card.
Yeah, and honestly, Castle versus Skrull was not even third or fourth
It lacked heat.
on the list.
It lacked heat.
And part of the reason it lacks heat is because of the way that the show is structured. So you said you've seen the show on Fight TV. Ring of Honor, they are seemingly incapable of running segments that build character.
Okay.
Or running segments at all. They're like this weird hybrid between WWE and New Japan where like they air a match and then in between matches they do a segment, but it's not really a segment, it's just a pre-taped promo that's going nowhere.
Is it the promo that's in front of that background?
Yeah, it's either in front of the background or it's some random spot in front of the merchandise stand or some other like generic location.
Yeah.
And all they talk about is the match that they're going to have after the commercial break. Not any kind of like program that they're building. So Ring of Honor does a really poor job of building their matches into larger angles. And that doesn't work if you portray yourself as more of an entertainment-based wrestling company than a wrestling-based one.
Which is what Ring of Honor made its initial name on, is being a wrestling company.
Yes, they stopped doing what they do and have started to become something they're not, and it's not working.
In fact, they were two wrestling. Like, they had a pure title.
Yes. The Code of Honor was how you knew who the faces and the heels were, because the faces always adhered to the Code of Honor, and the heels didn't.
Yeah, like they only had at one point like 3 fights without honor, and a fight without honor is your standard no disqualification match. So
yeah.
Okay, so before we move on from Ring of Honor, I want to ask you 2 more questions that will kind of lead us to our next subject. But 2 more questions. First, we talked about why there aren't any main eventers. Who would you make as a new crop of main eventers? Like, give me 4 or a couple. And secondly, and you can put both this together. Secondly, since we've talked ad nauseum about the problems that they have, what would you do if you could, to help get them on track? I'm not saying that you have the book, but to help them get back on track.
All right. So the answer to your second question is I want Mark Cuban to buy them.
Oh, well, just new ownership fixes everything, right?
No, it's not that new ownership fixes everything, but
He
it's
cares about
that
his products.
he cares about his products and he would like to own a wrestling. He would like to get into the wrestling industry. That's why he courts New Japan so hard.
And if he does
And
buy Ring of Honor, he'll still have access to New Japan because of the talent exchange.
because of the talent exchange, and he would give them better time slot, and he
Oh yeah,
would
oh yeah,
market them.
yeah.
If nothing else, even if he didn't, even access might not be in a lot of homes, but if nothing else, he would at least market them because Ring of Honor doesn't even really have very good social media presence. They're on social media, but I wouldn't say that they make effective use of social media in the way that their talents do.
I would agree
Your
with that.
talent should not be better at marketing themselves than you, the company, are.
That's a good point.
And so I don't think that new ownership is a fix all, but I do think that he would change the way that the company is prioritized, and he would have more of a growth mindset. And we've been talking about this identity crisis. If nothing else, he would decide what he wants the company to be, and he would make it that.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to do that even if it's to a detriment.
Yes. So that would be my answer to that question. If we're talking about a new crop of main eventers that currently work for the company,
Yes,
I fully support Matt Taven and the
both of
Kingdom
you, both of you had,
becoming.
both of us have said he should be the next champion.
Yes, I fully
Yeah,
support Matt Taven and the Kingdom becoming bigger parts of the roster. People like Flip Gordon in that Ring of Honor fandom. People really like Flip Gordon.
you could thank BTE for a lot of that too.
Yes, you can thank BTE for a lot of that, but take advantage of that. He's still, new. He's still young. I would elevate him. Um, Punishment Martinez could fulfill that upper mid card Haas role.
Sure, the Kane spot.
Yes, he could be that Kane gatekeeper. Um, and then I know he's technically only affiliated with them because of the talent exchange, but I just want Kushida to have a platform where he can be the number one star of a company.
I would
So,
love that. Yes.
so
So
send Kushida to Ring of Honor and just let him be the Okada of Ring of Honor.
can we talk about Kushida for just like a quick second?
I'm always down to talk about Kushida.
For those of you, you're listening to this, so you're very familiar with the Social Suplex Podcast Network. So shout out to Keeping It Strong Style with Jeremy and Josh. But Josh and I talk all the time about why Kushida is not pushed in the heavyweight division because he's a monster. Kushida is tremendous. Kushida's so good that they have to de-push him to put everybody else above him
But I think that's why they don't push him in the heavyweight division. They
because they
don't
know
want
what's
to
gonna
make
happen.
Kushida a heavyweight because they don't want Kushida to steal the shine
They know what's gonna
from
happen.
the boys.
Yes. So I love the
Like,
idea of saying, "Hey man, go run Ring of Honor for a couple of years and do what you do." And then he could go back to New Japan as a superstar, even though he
I would
technically already
love
is.
that.
Yeah,
Him versus Kota Ibushi,
yeah,
title versus title.
that'd be
Yes.
tremendous. So yeah, I'm
Yes.
on board with that 100%. So I asked you those questions because number one, we one thing I don't like about us as a fan base is we like to complain a lot, but we don't have solutions. And our solutions a lot of times are gonna be stupid because we're not in the business, but at least have an idea. I don't just complain to complain. And you have been very vocal about your Ring of Honor disdain, but you've always had solutions. It was never just from a place of hate; it was from a place of love, right? So that brings us to a conversation we had last night. I wanted to say for the podcast. So the world is so different in wrestling right now that everywhere you look, there is talent. And you couldn't say that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm not just talking about like, oh, talent I can go see to a show. Like legit talent you could see having a real run in New Japan or WWE, right?
What you want to see.
You would not only that you want, but you could. Like a lot of these guys, even though I don't like them, I could see it. So I asked you to tell me 5 free agents that you could see that you would want, or if you could, you would sign in WWE. But the caveat was the word free agent. in this respect meant somebody that was not signed to a company that has a major television show. So that's WWE, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, Lucha Underground, and we didn't talk about MLW because I don't know who's signed and who's not. So
I
like
don't
a
either.
guy like I know Shane Strickland and Maxwell Joseph Friedman are signed there, and neither of us picked those two, but those are two great stars, right? But
Yeah,
so
good.
so of those outside of those five, and if your company wasn't named, I apologize if you're listening to somebody from that company. It's not a diss. I'm just talking about the major companies. So give me your five, and then I'll give you my five, and then we'll elaborate. How about that?
All right. So my five in no particular order. I'll give the first one I'm going to give was our exception. He was our mutually declared exception to the rule. Um, and this man has gone by many names throughout the years. Currently, he goes by 3 different names, depending on who you're talking to.
What company he's
Uh,
in?
yes, depending on the company. So at various times, he's been Johnny Nitro, Johnny Impact, Johnny Mundo,
Boone the
um,
Bounty Hunter.
Boone the Bounty Hunter. You all probably know him most well known as John Morrison. And again, he was our exception because he's literally everywhere.
Yes, but just not
Like
signed to anybody.
he's not signed really to anybody. Like he's all over Mexico right now. Like that's people who were wondering whatever happened to John Morrison. That's what happened. He realized that his parkour fit in lucha libre in a way that was just perfect, and he became huge.
Yeah.
So he was my first one. My
Lucha,
second one,
Lucha. Hold on, real quick. Lucha Underground has a title exchange with AAA or CMLL.
AAA.
AAA. Got you.
AAA. My second one is pretty well known in the independent scene. I'd go with Matt Riddle.
Superstar.
It,
And
yeah,
we also both have him. He's probably the top guy in the Indies.
yeah. If you've seen Matt Riddle, you understand why Matt Riddle. Um, my third, I'm gonna go with Jeff Cobb. He's not technically full on with New Japan yet. He is technically with Lucha Underground, but not as Jeff Cobb. He wrestles under a mask as Matanza. So if you don't know that he's under the mask, Jeff Cobb, he's a bigger guy, but he's also short, and that allows him to incorporate more of the athleticism, that time with the lucha. Then switch it up a little bit. Chelsea Green, she used to be signed with Impact as Laurel Van Ness.
Speaking of Chelsea, and she's also Zack Ryder's girlfriend. But speaking of her, she is in a WWE tryout right now with, like, literally as we speak, with Robbie E. So she might be signed.
Sign both of them.
Hell yeah!
Sign
Both of them deserve to be signed. Absolutely.
put Robbie E on 205 Live tomorrow.
You ain't gonna get no complaints from me. Both of them deserve to be there.
And then my last one, the cream in your coffee, your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler, David Starr.
Yes. Yes. I love David Starr and how different he is, and really tapping into that kind of doesn't he have like the Jewish championship or something like that?
Yes, he is unabashed about his Judaism.
I love it.
One of his many nicknames is the circumcised savior. I
That-
was gonna go through the whole list, but yeah, the circumcised savior.
You got me. I'm there. Like that's so ridiculous it works.
Yes.
So let me give you my five real quick, and then I wanna kind of dip in on the three we not disagree with, but we both picked differently. So of course, me and you both picked Riddle and Morrison. I think they speak for themselves. Um, I'm gonna start with Walter, and we kind of had a bit of a disagreement about him because Walter's almost guaranteed to be signed to NXT, but it's
The
not
only
official
reason I
yet.
the only reason I didn't pick him is because I'm pretty positive he's gonna.
Right. And if I wouldn't have picked Walter, I would have probably picked Chelsea as well. Because she should have been there a long time ago, but that's another conversation. Or if you don't want to pick Chelsea, you can say Ivelisse, right? One of those, like,
I do love Ivelisse, but she
amazing.
signed Lucha.
Oh, is
And
she?
yeah, she signed to Lucha Underground.
Okay. Funny how both of them were in Tough Enough and they got let go. But
All right.
so much talent from Tough Enough. Kenny King was on Tough Enough.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of talent.
And for as much as people shit on Tough Enough, and for as much as we all shit on WWE, like Tough Enough produced a lot more people than people give it credit for.
Matt
John
Cross,
Morrison was from Tough Enough.
Matt Cross, M-Dog
Yep.
2020, or I'm sorry, Son of Havoc.
Son of
Marty the Moth,
Yep.
Martinez, Martin Cassius. A
Yeah.
lot of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we all remember the Mavens and the Nydias of when it just started, but like a lot of people came through that Tough Enough. It's not the Divas search, y'all. Actual talent went through Tough Enough.
So my last two, and I kind of took liberties with one of them because it's a package deal, but I'm gonna start with Mia Yim. If you have paid attention to the Indies since WrestleMania weekend, there might not be a hotter woman in wrestling than Mia Yim. Keith Lee picked her to be. Keith Lee picked Mia Yim to be his final match on the Indies. Now look at Keith Lee, 6'4", 5', 320 pounds. Mia Yim 5'6", 100 and probably 20.
Yeah, but
30.
say she don't deserve it. Say she
No,
don't deserve it.
she deserves. In fact, not only does she deserve it, if you watch the match, she took it to him just as much as he took it to her. Mia Yim's probably the best unsigned woman, maybe still wrestling right now.
Now that Io Shirai has been signed, absolutely.
Right, and even then, Io Shirai was signed to Stardom. We just didn't say them.
True.
But then look, man, I have my issues with this dude, but you cannot tell me he's not the hottest wrestler in the world right now. That's not in a major company. Joey Janela is killing right now. Joey Janela and Penelope Ford as a group, but Joey Janela in particular are killing right now. He just won the WWN championship. My issues with Joey Janela aren't him. I think he might not be the best wrestler, but he always does. He more than any wrestler out will do anything he possibly can to entertain you, and I respect that. But I hate that he had to go deathmatch to get there. Something else I was telling you I hated about him that just slipped my mind. But
Well, thinking of that, I'll say this: we were talking about differences and why he was on your list, why he wasn't on mine. The only reason he's not on mine, I've heard a lot of great things about Joey Janela.
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of high praise about Joey Janela. I've only ever seen one Joey Janela match.
was it the one where Zandig threw him off the top?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What everybody's seeing of him.
yeah, and so I'm not going to put him on my list because I'm not familiar enough with him to say, oh yeah, I absolutely want to see Joey Janela signed to whomever. I've heard all sorts of great things, and I am absolutely down to look up some of his stuff and check him out more. But at this point, I haven't seen a lot of Joey Janela.
Well, let me flip that for you. Luka Doncic just got drafted number 3, right?
Yes.
He could have been drafted number 1.
Yes.
Nobody in America has ever seen him play because he plays in the EuroLeague. But everybody knows he's a superstar. So sometimes you don't have to see a dude to know he's a superstar.
Yeah, but everybody knew Ricky Rubio and Andrea Bargnani were going to pan out too, and we saw how that went.
Ricky Rubio has been a good player. Bargnani was supposed to be a superstar, and that didn't pan out. So he was screwed from get-go. That's a good comeback.
No, the only reason I bring that up, though, is you talked about the EuroLeague connection.
That's a good comeback.
Well, one thing that we both know good and well is if you're not part of the majority group, the first one that fucks it up for everybody.
Everybody, yes.
Because now that Bargnani was such a colossal flameout,
Mhm.
every EuroLeague player is viewed with skepticism. It's just like Kwame Brown flamed out of high school, and from then on,
19 years old.
We're talking about age limits and can high school kids handle it?
Yeah.
And blah blah blah.
Yeah. Great point.
Meanwhile, we forget Kobe, LeBron, and Garnett all came straight out of high school, and all three of them are going into the Hall of Fame.
Tracy McGrady, Jermaine O'Neal, Moses Malone, but yeah, this isn't the Outsider's Edge NBA podcast because we could talk about
So you bring that up to say I haven't seen Joey Janela aside from the deathmatch stuff, and death matches are death matches. Just because you're good at death matches doesn't automatically mean
this is true.
I want to see you outside of them.
But much like Dean Ambrose, I appreciate guys like Janela. Matt Tremont's another guy. I've seen a lot of Matt Tremont, by the way.
Oh yeah, before you go on, before you finish your point, let me just put this disclaimer out there. I have nothing but respect for deathmatch people because
Same here.
they have balls 10 times the size of my own, because I would never intentionally do that to myself.
I have issues with deathmatch wrestling, but yes, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
respect. Respect. Not for
Yes.
me, but respect.
Yes, perfectly, 100%. But I appreciate that Janela and Tremont and a couple other guys, AR Fox or Dante Fox, as you know him, Shane Strickland. Strickland was a two-time CZW champion, by the way. Some of these guys who did deathmatch and kind of started their name that way have expanded beyond it, have shown I'm more than just this guy. And Ambrose kind of opened up that recently that window for, hey, there's more to this guy than putting a sawzall to his head, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, but what I love about Janela is his ingenuity, and I say that because GCW, Game Changer Wrestling, which is I'm not even gonna call it it's not a deathmatch fed. It's more than that, but every year recently they've run like specialty shows during WrestleMania weekend, right? Like this year they had the Bloodsport show that Matt Riddle sponsored, which basically the entire show was like real ass fighting with the ring, but like no post and no ropes, and you just go out there and get your ass beat. And like it
Yeah.
was so different.
Riddle and Suzuki killed each other.
Well, Riddle should have been killing low key, but that's another conversation. But Janela, the past couple years, might have been three actually, has run Joey Janela Spring Break. I've never been to it, but from everybody that's been, even just internet, just if you check the internet and Twitter,
I bought the iPay-per-view this year. It was a great show.
everybody says it's the best show of WrestleMania
It was a
weekend,
lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
and that's all from his mind. And then I tell you this, I've never seen the show, but the way the little video packages he has to announce the matches are
Hmm.
genius, like the old school video game 8-bit stuff.
Yep.
So I really like the dude's ingenuity, his willingness to do whatever it takes to entertain, and as such, you see he's being really, really not only supported for it, but he's becoming successful for it outside of having to literally jump off of 20 feet through tables and light tubes and barbed wire, right? So that's why I picked him, but I think any of them we picked all were deserving.
Yeah, no, I think Joe. I've heard nothing but good things about Joey Janela from not just you, from a lot of people whose opinions I very, very much respect. I'm not very familiar with him, so I went with David Starr instead.
Can we talk about somebody we're all familiar with, but we don't want to be anymore?
Oh, obviously,
So let's
Brock.
let's yeah, we got to talk a little WWE, and these are like some quick hits, but Brock Lesnar, the finesser of all finessers.
I don't
Uh,
know. Jeff Jarrett's still alive.
this is a good point.
Like Jeff Jarrett
Hey,
convinced me to merge with him, rebrand, and then put fucking duct tape stickers over their world title for the next 3 months.
this
Cause
is
with
this is
that
true.
shit.
This is true, but Brock Lesnar did win the championship, not defend it, and then go fight for another company.
This is true. He also is, I think, in a lot of ways responsible for the death of Roman Reigns.
That's CM Punk's fault, but sure, you can put him on the list.
No, I'm not talking. No, CM Punk might have been responsible for the stabbing.
Oh,
The
but he
actual
ended it.
death is Brock Lesnar's fault. And
Ah,
I say that to say this, to borrow your catchphrase. I say that to say this. Even though I wouldn't have necessarily liked it when Roman beat Brock at Mania, I would have forgiven that.
yeah, for a
I would
full-time
forgive
champ.
that as opposed to Brock Lesnar's never ending hostage of the Universal title.
Uh, somebody call Bruce Willis or Liam Neeson. We gotta find the title.
Seriously, can I get John McCain to yippee ki motherfucker Brock out of here? I would
Oh
cheer
man.
like I would cheer anyway because I'm a fan of this person, but I know for a lot of people this would be the ultimate insult. I would cheer if Joey motherfucking Ryan sleazed his way down to the ring and dick flipped Brock the fuck out of here.
If Brock does the dick flip, I think Brock will be loved again for even allowing himself to do the dick flip.
I mean, I think everybody should allow themselves to do the dick flip because I know a lot of people don't think wrestling can still be fun, but I am fully of the belief that wrestling can still be fun.
Sure.
Fuck it. It's fun. Let it be fun.
So I bring up. I want to talk about Brock Lesnar for a second because he's in the news for a number of reasons. In fact, like Meltzer can't keep him out of his mouth for like 5 minutes. So let's run down the list of things he's in the news for. Number one, uh, the storyline recently has been that Heyman doesn't think that Heyman is offended that they think that somebody has the ability to be put in a match with him. So he got the Extreme Rules multi-man match killed. That's number one. Number two, Meltzer has changed his mind 3 times. First, he wasn't going to defend at SummerSlam. Then, oh well, he's going to defend at SummerSlam against Roman Reigns. Then it changed to, well, Brock might not even be signed, or it's changed so many different times. So there's the possible SummerSlam match.
Really just further proof that WWE just strings Meltzer along and he eats that shit up.
Hey man, look, the only person on this show that can talk shit about Meltzer is me, bro. Okay?
No,
Don't
dude,
infringe on my territory.
Man. Fuck with it, all right?
Don't infringe on my territory, bro.
First of all, you don't get to go reinventing star systems and shit. That's not how that go. You don't just get to add stars to the system.
And y'all wonder why this is my brother, right? Y'all wonder, right?
That's number one. Number two, with the mind changing, all that means is that Dave Meltzer believes and reports every single fucking thing someone even remotely connected to WWE tells him. Heard it from Brock's makeup guy's assistant's ex-wife's boyfriend.
So he's Harvey Levin.
Yeah, like he's the Mean Girls.
He's a plastic. He's a plastic.
He's a plastic, and the newsletter is his burn book.
Oh my! I am going to call him the Plastic Meltzer forever now. Oh my goodness, that's great. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. God, okay. So, I was talking with right for the chair shot, and I was talking with Steven, who is the reviewer of Chair Shot, about Brock, and I am not behind the story. So let's get that straight. I'm not a fan of the story, but I'm able to discern the difference between liking something and appreciating it for what it is. The story that they're trying to tell with Brock Lesnar, I don't like it, but on paper it's genius. And the story is they have flipped the idea of dominance from everybody he beats, everybody he wrestles he beats, and they flipped it from that to he's so dominant nobody deserves a shot at him, and because he has power of attorney or legal precedent or whatever you want to say, find legal loopholes. He doesn't have to. He's not defending the title because nobody's worthy. He don't think nobody's worthy to even waste his time to fly into the city to defend his title. So
here's why it works, though. It wouldn't work for anybody but Brock for
yes.
one reason and one reason only. Well, I lie. It would work for one other person. It would work for CM Punk.
Okay.
For the exact same reason. Because both of them are dicks in real life and don't care about anyone
Yes.
but themselves.
Yes.
So it works because you could legitimately see Brock Lesnar sitting in a room saying, nah, fuck these scrubs.
They want me to wrestle who? They want me to wrestle gender? Fuck that. I'm gone.
No.
Give me AJ or I ain't wrestling.
Give me AJ or I'm not showing up.
And so, but
they could see Brock just phoning it in the day of, yeah, I was gonna get on the plane, but I had to take a real bad shit, so I went home.
Well, see, that's where you're wrong. He wouldn't even call. He just wouldn't come. Remember, what was it at Elimination Chamber where he was supposed to be at the show, but he was with Dana White in a UFC shirt in the same city. But we're such a smart fan base now, such an intelligent fan base, in terms of we know so much about, or we think we know so much about the inner workings of the business. And we've become so entitled that we kind of have changed the way that they've had to book, right? Which is why a lot of the times Nia Jax is a perfect example of Nia switched from heel to face to heel, but WWE would say she hasn't done anything but just stay true to her character. Bayley, Bayley did what most people would call a heel turn, which is actually the next topic. We'll get to that in a second. But was it really
I
a heel
hope
turn?
she's the heel. I know a lot of people don't. I hope she's
Well,
the heel
we're gonna get to
because
that.
I needs it.
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that because that's something again. That's the very next topic.
All right, all right.
But I think with Brock, they've realized, much like you said, he's a dick. I think they're trying to book differently. That the goal for every story is at the end of it to have to be entertaining. This hasn't been, but okay. But at the end of it, if it's not gonna be entertaining, at least have a purpose and elevate, right? So whoever finally does beat Brock should essentially be elevated, right?
I feel like at this point it's got like I feel like at this point I know that everybody thinks they're building to Roman, but to me all signs point to Bobby Lashley.
Oh, I
And
was
then
gonna say
Braun
Kurt Hawkins, but
Strowman
okay.
and then Braun Strowman cashes in and beats Lashley and that's the program.
Well,
Because Strowman and Lashley are at least both full time.
can we talk about how this consistent thought process that Roman is always going to get every title shot is getting old? And I'm not talking about them giving him the title shots are old, but that for 4 years we've in our minds as fans just assumed that Roman's always going to get the title shots and he doesn't get them and he continues to lose.
Well, I'm just going off of what the report that's constantly changed has been. And also with WWE, I generally take a contrarian stance of whatever they're telling me, they really mean the opposite. So if
Which
they're
is why
telling me
Lashley, yeah.
Roman doesn't deserve a title shot, Roman has
he does.
lost it, he blah 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 blah, then my mind automatically goes to okay, so the story they're going to tell is how Roman overcomes that and gets the title shot anyway.
They can't do it again, can they?
They shouldn't do it again. That doesn't mean they won't.
Dog, look.
I agree with what you're saying, bro. I agree with what you're saying. They shouldn't do it again, but that doesn't mean they won't.
This is a good point. And I'm interested in Lashley and Lesnar because of the very real
Lesnar was the only thing about Lashley coming back that was interesting to me in the first place.
right. And this fight should be happening in the UFC.
Yeah, these are two legitimate heavyweight badasses who can step into the octagon and legitimately beat the shit out of each other.
I selfishly, because the show's in Brooklyn, I don't know if you remember what was it, SummerSlam 98 or 99, whichever one it was, with Shamrock and Owen in the Lions Den.
Wait, was that Shamrock and Owen? Because the Lions Den match I remember was Steve Blackman and Shamrock.
There was two of them.
Oh, you're right. You're talking about the first. The first one would have been 98 then, because Blackman and Shamrock was late 99.
Yeah. Yeah, because Dan Severn was the ref. But yes, I secretly wanted to let them have a Lions Den or a MMA rules match or something, and that could kind of be Brock's de facto goodbye and his warm up for going back to UFC because we all know that's what he wants to do. But no, I'm interested in Lashley versus him. Hell, the perfect ending to this would be Kurt Hawkins rolling him up, right? Wouldn't that be perfect?
Selfishly, that would be, it would definitely be the best way to show the hypocrisy of the fans because they'll rally behind Kurt Hawkins going from jobber to champion in a way that they never rallied behind Jinder going from jobber to champion.
Look, man, you can't talk all this truth on the show. You can't do that. We can't do that. Move on to the next topic. Too much truth.
Let me say this. I'm not a Jinder apologist. I'm not a Jinder fan. I think that Jinder is mediocre. I don't think he's bad. I think he's mediocre.
Yeah.
And I think he was given a position that he wasn't necessarily ready for, and he was put in an unfair circumstance.
Absolutely.
And none of that is Jinder Mahal's fault. But what I think is hilarious is there's a lot of people in the fan base who've said something like, oh, Kurt Hawkins should just roll up Brock and become the champ. And while that would be hilarious, and I fully support the hilarity of it, it's a great example of how fucking hypocritical the fans are. No, we can't make Jinder Mahal the champion, the WWE champion, because that's a super prestigious title and he's a career jobber, blah, blah, blah. But Kurt Hawkins can roll up Brock Lesnar because fuck it, why not? I don't like Brock.
After 200 plus losses.
Yeah, because fuck it, why not? I don't like Brock.
Yeah, fuck Brock. Yeah, good point. Um, but Braun's the guy to get the title, right?
I think in the end you don't give him the briefcase if not, because there are so many other stories they could have told with all of these other people.
Oh,
With that
so
briefcase.
man, I really like Braun. I think Braun is truly the next Big Show, and I
I
mean that
think that Braun is
positively.
currently I think that Braun is currently a victim of what we talked about with Dalton Castle earlier. They didn't strike at the right moment. They've waited too long, and now it's still going to be big because people still support him, but the moment isn't there anymore.
That may be true, and I think that actually is very true. I want to talk about the other side of that though, and the other side of that is Braun's about to be exposed because it's a big difference between being existing in your own space in the mid card or the upper mid card, whatever, and being the guy. When you're the guy and you have to open up the show with a 15-minute segment where you're talking, you know, or you have to wrestle the main event, which is a 15-minute, 20-minute segment where you have to wrestle and tell an effective story, right? You know what I'm saying? Or things of this nature, or your appearance is counted on to pop the quarter ratings at the top of each hour. Like, though, that's a different spot than
And
just.
it doesn't work if you don't build an actual character.
And he is an actual character, but
Because but he is a character, but Braun's character is just I fuck shit up.
that's what it's become.
That's not a character that's capable of doing all of the things that you're talking about.
Absolutely.
They
And
never established the layers required. Why
absolutely.
do you fuck shit up? What are you
Absolutely.
fucking things up for?
Right.
What's the long-term goal? Because the push was, I need more competition.
Yes.
Okay, why? Why? Even if it's just to lean on the strongman stuff, you can make a career out of that. Mark Henry made a great career out of being a strongman competitor.
Hmm.
But the difference was Mark Henry, when they finally pushed him, was at a moment when it clicked and it was like, oh, I'm such a badass. Fuck a Hall of Fame. I'm inducting you into the Hall of Pain.
Yep.
I'm going to beat you within an inch of your life. And we're going to establish that by having me beat up monster characters. I'm
Yes.
going to beat Undertaker. I'm going to beat Kane. I'm going to beat Big Show.
Kali.
Khali.
Yeah.
I'm going to mow through these guys.
That's a great point. I
These layers.
and then since he's turned full on face, he's been goofy, and it's fun. But I feel like we're on the verge of once he gets that title, the crowd's gonna turn on him. I feel we're
I
close
could
to
see
that.
that because of, again, I could see that because, again, the lack of layers to attach like
Yeah.
yourself to.
He's truly
There's no
one dimensional.
nuance. Exactly. That's the problem. And that's why I said a lack of character. He has a persona, but it's not a character.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because Braun Strowman,
Amazing.
if you follow him on social media, number one, he's an amazing person. But number
Yes.
two, he's full of personality and full of character and
Yes.
full of. He's got that intangible it quality that we talk about that makes you want to pay attention to him because he is very larger than life.
Yeah.
They've not built anything beyond he's big and he pulls shit apart.
Similarly to Roman, how Roman is a different dude when he's, on the talk show circuit or on the red carpet, and he's engaging and interesting. Braun is just that, but even more full of life.
Mm-hmm.
He's one. If you
And
notice
because
recently,
he's so big, he gets that gentle giant vibe. You know, everybody loves a super huge guy that gives off that teddy bear.
I think, and this is going to be a bit blasphemous, but he's almost a white Shaq.
Shorter, but I see where you're coming from. Absolutely see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Because
Like,
they're both
he's
truly.
just such a personality and he's so
Yeah.
jovial.
Exactly. And if he gets serious or you piss him off, he'll snap your head off your body.
Yep, he'll just turn it on.
Yeah. And if you notice, this is how I know guys are really being pushed to the top of the company. or at least being trusted. When you see that they have the upfronts for NBC, or they have a major company
He
thing,
just did a Make-A-Wish. He just did a make.
yes,
He's
who
reached
get
Make-A-Wish status.
who gets sent to these things? Who are the guys that they prop? And Braun's been doing that. But I
You
do
know
fear for
who
Braun.
does a lot of that, but he'll never be pushed up the card for all sorts of reasons?
Who's that?
Titus.
This is true. And
Anytime Titus fulfills that Mark Henry role of anytime that lower card guy that does all kinds of charity work.
I think the difference between Titus and Mark is Titus is getting popular for that. Mark never got
Mark
popular
always
for his.
Mark never did it to become popular.
And Titus
Mark
hasn't either. But
no.
it's just so many people he's friends with are popular. Batista is his best friend, right? Like things
Well,
like this.
he went to Florida during the height of the Spurrier era.
Yes.
I know this because I went to the University of South Carolina when Spurrier was the head football coach, and every time WWE did a show in Columbia, Titus would be tweeting out pics from the gym at the university.
Yeah. So yeah, and I don't know if Titus is ever talent wise worthy of being pushed to the top of the card, but I would like for them to give him something substantial
I would
eventually.
have liked, when the Primetime Players first won the tag team titles, I thought this is perfect for both of them.
Yes.
Neither of them are going anywhere solo. Neither of them are moving up anywhere solo, but together they work. And that theme song is still fire.
Totally agree. And then remember, this was after Darren had come out.
Yes.
So you have so many different layers.
And it gave you the opportunity to handle Darren Young the right way by allowing Darren Young to just continue to be Darren Young and not have to become gay Darren Young.
I'm the guy who's gay, absolutely. Which is why I'm glad they didn't push him directly after he came out. In fact,
it's also why I'm really appreciative of how they handle Sonya Deville. She's
absolutely.
not lesbian Sonya Deville. She's just Sonya Deville, the badass performer who's getting better and better every week.
Absolutely. Speaking of women, a good segue. Let's get to the Bayley Sasha thing. So
I really think Bayley's the heel. I really do.
Okay, you want her to be, but do you think she is?
I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because they've not effectively done this story.
Okay.
Because of how long they slow brewed it. They slow brewed it for so long that when the beating finally came, I didn't know what to think anymore because they both turned on each other so many different times that one beating doesn't inherently make you the face or the heel in this one. I think of all the times that they both abandoned each other in a tag match and all of the times that they made amends only to turn on each other again.
Okay.
And
so let me ask you this.
Bayley to be the heel because I think that Bayley has the chance to pull a Sami Zayn and be the best kind of heel. The best heels are the heels that think they're heroes.
Absolutely. Let's look.
Bayley give a great heel promo about how Sasha always turned on her and Sasha always was only concerned about Sasha and how Sasha did her dirty at Elimination Chamber and all these
Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and she could take it back to Brooklyn. She could take it back to Brooklyn. Like, I want Bayley to be full on, y'all ain't shit, hug myself, fuck you, Bayley. Especially after the crowd turned on her with Bayley, this is your life, and
the whole Alexa feud.
Yeah, that entire thing. Like, Bayley could cut a fire, I hate all of y'all, I'm gonna do me promo.
Well, the problem is Bayley can't cut that because she's not talented on the mic, but they can write it for her. There's a difference. Sammy can talk. Bayley can't talk. But let's get to the crux of the issue. Why does somebody have to be the heel? Why can't they both be right and both be wrong and it just be you cheer for who you want to, who you believe in the situation. Like, for example, I am on Team Bayley in the situation. If I was looking at this like I was watching a TV show, or these are my friends, right? Sasha and Bayley are my friends, and I'm the guy stuck in the middle. I would be Team Bayley because for the past 4 years, I've seen Sasha bully Bayley and attack Bayley and beat her up. and do everything she can to hurt her. And then Bayley finally moved past her, and then earn Sasha's respect, and then become friends. And then Sasha be a good friend for a while until it's me or her, and I turn on her again, and I go back to the Sasha I've always been. And Bayley finally stood up for herself. If you were Team Sasha, you would say, well, Bayley wasn't worth your time, but she earned your respect, and as like a good friend would, you finally realized the error of your ways, and you became her friend, and you always looked out for her. But we're in a business where it's always about you have to look out for yourself before anybody else. So you just did what you had to do to always to succeed, but you always went back and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. You know why I had to do that." And you try to be her friend. You're the reason she's in WWE because you made in the main roster because you made her, you called her up. You're the reason she beat Charlotte because you helped her beat Charlotte. You're the reason this, that, and the other. And Bayley's just ungrateful. So you can look at it both ways. So both of them could be bad, both of them could be good, but why can't we just play it down the middle and just pick who you want to pick?
I'm gonna I'm gonna counter with a more big picture argument.
Okay.
Um, the women's division of WWE's main roster, period, so both shows, desperately needs a heel that's a good ring general.
On both shows.
Yeah, because the faces on both shows are the mat technicians.
I mean, Mickey is technically a heel, but yes, your point is fair. Yeah.
Mickey is, but my argument against Mickey, and I love Mickey James, I am of the opinion that if Mickey retires on Monday, she should be in the Hall of Fame on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because she's a legend. Like, if you want to talk women's wrestling and you talk the legends of women's wrestling, after you talk about Trish and Lita and Chyna and those girls, Mickey better be one of the first ones out your mouth.
Absolutely.
But Mickey's also, late 30s. She's in that phase of her career where she is winding it down.
Sure.
She's not in that, not that she can't go anymore, but she's not at a point in her career where she wants to be that full-time person.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
her husband wrestles. Nick Aldis is her husband. So between the two of them, both wrestling full-time, that's a pretty hectic travel schedule with 2 children.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So, I think for the health of the women's division overall, it would be better if they started to consider at least making a couple of these more technically sound girls into antagonists, so that it's not always the same formula.
Look, you're what you're saying is absolutely, I agree 100%. But why does it have to be Bayley? And I get your reason why, because it would freshen the character. But why go with something new that might not work when Sasha could be the best heel in the company?
Because Bayley as a face isn't really working very well right now.
Okay, but then why not address why it's not working instead of just redoing it? Because Bayley isn't working, and I've said this on this show many times. Bayley isn't working because the fans won't allow it to work. And I know that's Rance talking about the fans again, but hear me out. The reason Bayley worked in NXT was because it was literally a slow grind of 3 years. Right? She had to really truly earn the fans' love, and she would get so far. When she started off, people when she started, you almost questioned whether they're gonna go the Eugene route with her because she was so goofy. But then she would make her way and make her way and make her way, and then she would lose. And she would make her way and make her way and make her way, and then she would get bullied and lose. And she would make her way and make her way and make her way, and got a title shot, and then she lost. She would make her way and make her way, and then she got injured. And when she came back, she had to start from the bottom again, and continue, and continue to build up momentum until where it wasn't just that she wasn't good enough, she didn't believe in herself. And then the crowd started to believe in her because she started showing their promise. And the crowd helped her believe in herself, which let her beat Becky. They let her beat Charlotte. They let her beat Sasha and become the best in that company. But that's not an overnight thing. You can't. When she came to WWE, the main roster, she was already at the apex. So there's a big generation of fans, or a big subset of fans who didn't watch NXT, who just knew this Bayley girl. But why do I like her? Because she hugs and has colors? Okay, that's cool for little girls and little kids. But why would I like her? The reason we liked her was because she earned it. She's never had the opportunity to earn it on the main roster because if Bayley loses 2 matches, she's being buried, right? That's the thought process of the fans. So if you allow her to continue to be bullied and mistreated, and people attack her, and then she builds her way back up, then she'll be loved again because she would have earned the love organically.
I understand your argument. I guess my argument to counter that would just be it's another instance of how the NXT model, it's not necessarily a problem. It's not necessarily that NXT is a problem, but the NXT model creates this inherent situation where the fans that watch NXT watch the main roster completely differently than fans that don't.
Absolutely.
And they do because you have to. If I've invested all this time in Sami Zayn's character, why would I instantly forget all of the things that I saw him build towards just because now he's on Raw instead of NXT?
Absolutely.
Why would I forget who Tyler Breeze is just because he's on SmackDown and not NXT? And so what it creates is a situation where the third, and it is a solid third, there's 1.5 million network subscribers religiously, and there's about 2.5 to 3 million Raw and SmackDown viewers religiously. Mm-hmm. So that's roughly a third of your audience is watching your product in a way that the other 2/3 are not. And it's not that the other 2/3 aren't entitled to their stories, but you can't treat that third, because that's a significant minority.
Sure, a vocal minority at that.
Yeah, a vocal minority who speaks with their wallet, because that's the minority that's buying a lot of merch and going to these shows. And the 2/3 do too, but the minority spends more of their money on it, I would argue. And you can't insult their intelligence. And you can't insult not even so much their intelligence, but the dedication that they had to the product by pretending that what they did before didn't happen. And that's in a lot of ways what they ask you to do. Someone gets promoted, and it's like, okay, yeah, you watched them do all this stuff in NXT, but we want you to just, for the sake of the new direction they're going in, pretend that didn't happen, and that they're a brand new guy.
Well, let's talk about Bayley and Zayn more than Tyler, because Tyler's just been he's not underutilized. He wasn't utilized for the longest, so it wasn't that he was failed. He didn't have anything to do.
Tyler was a victim of omission, and still is. Tyler's not a victim of
being mistreated
poorly, because I'm not even harping on losses, because Tyler Breeze got beat on NXT. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a jobber to the stars. That's a respectable place to be in a company.
Oh, absolutely.
Don't get utilized. So yeah, let's focus with Bayley and Sami. That's fine.
So with Bayley and Sami, their characters, we just talked about character very strongly with Braun. Their characters are inherently underdogs.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The problem became that as underdogs, they eventually achieved the ultimate. Zayn beat Neville, who was the best in the business in NXT at the time, and Bayley beat Sasha in one of the best women's matches ever. Match of the year probably for that entire company.
Yes. Okay,
but that doesn't mean that they're no longer underdogs. That just means they hit a hot streak. They reached their peak potential. So
O'Brien syndrome, man. Once you put them on the apex, once you put them at the apex, you spoil the expectation.
So it's not an NXT problem then.
And so people just assume that they always are going to be at that apex.
So that's why I say it's a fan issue. It's not an NXT issue. That's a fan issue because you've allowed yourself.
Okay, I'll let you finish first.
Just let me say this last point real quick. Go back to Zayn. What happened to Sami directly after he won the title? He lost it, and he'll continue to lose over and over and over and over and over again. He went back to being who he was. Bayley, she had a very high level of success. Zayn has worked in the main roster more than Bayley has.
Oh, Zayn absolutely works way more now, especially now that he's turned heel.
Right, but I'm talking about even as a babyface. And yes, I say this knowing that Bayley has won a world title, even defended at WrestleMania, and Zayn hasn't won a title. But I'm talking about consistent use. Zayn was consistently used and as a face. Bayley has been.
Okay, right? so here's my counter on why I still think it is partly an NXT problem and partly a company problem.
And I'll agree the company sets it up to be bad, but I don't think it's their problem. But go ahead.
Well, here's what I'm going to say. With NXT, the reason why a lot of this happens is because you never see someone in NXT take the step down, because what happens once you reach the top in NXT?
You're gone.
You get called up.
Yeah.
You don't have a follow-up feud or a follow-up program or whatever. Sammy only stuck around as long as he did because he got hurt.
That's a good point.
That's the only reason he was still there as long as he was, is because he got hurt. And so they don't condition you to see the upper mid-card stuff that this person would be doing after they've reached the top. The other problem is WWE, in my opinion anyway, and in an opinion of a lot of that vocal minority of the fan base, they don't effectively handle their upper mid-card writing. And as a result of that, when you see these characters being used, even though, you make the argument a lot, and it's a valid argument, they're being used. They're on Sammy's being used. He's on TV every week. He's involved in these, and that in and of itself is a success. And that's
on the main roster, yeah.
That is a valid argument to make. But the writing is not done in such a way to make me see the value in it. It's not portrayed in such a way to make me see the value in it. It's only portrayed in such a way to make me see Sammy lose over and over and over again. And
okay, that's fair. That's true. I can agree with that. I can totally agree with that.
I put that on the company. I think you're right about the fan entitlement aspect, 100%. But I put those things on the company because it's their call-up philosophy, where we have these regimented call-ups every couple of months, which I think in and of itself should not be a thing. I want call-ups to be more random and appropriate.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm okay with the WrestleMania, but
I'm okay with the
rest of the week.
Call-up, but the rest of the year, I want them to be much more like randomized, because people finish out their use in NXT at different times. I would argue that Johnny Gargano should be done now.
Well, no, because he got finished his Tommaso Ciampa thing.
Oh man, let it be done.
No,
Ciampa's spat on his wedding ring. You can't get more despicable than that.
That's why you can't. Come on, man. If you are a married man, you cannot let that stand. Your partner will not. If you were to go home to your partner, come on, man.
Right.
You can't walk to he or she and be like, "So, babe, I don't have my wedding ring anymore." Well, what happened? Well, the dude I was fighting took it out, spit on it, and threw it in the crowd. And you were here? You're not in jail? But no, actually, you kind of changed my opinion. You're actually the way you pitched it to me actually makes a lot more sense, and I really kind of agree with your point now. It is the job of the company to establish the narrative of the character, and if you even if they have a different establishment. So,
and we know they can do it. And we know they can do it if you think about, still within NXT, think about Velveteen Dream versus Aleister Black. Dream lost that match, but he didn't lose. And you saw that he didn't lose because at the end of the match, as soon as Black sat down and said, enjoy infamy, Velveteen Dream,
he won.
Done. He won. It doesn't matter that he just lost that match and that he didn't live up to whatever. He won.
But that's Bray Wyatt syndrome, though, because most of Bray Wyatt's matches were never about winning. Bray Wyatt didn't care about winning for the longest time. Bray Wyatt cared about making his point. The WrestleMania 30 match against John Cena is most notable because that's one of my favorite matches I've ever seen, especially recently. It was so beautifully constructed because that match wasn't about Bray Wyatt winning. People get mad that Bray lost. Bray was supposed to lose. The match was about turning Cena into a monster. And there's one point where Cena has a chair and Bray does the Bray pose and says, "Go ahead, baby. Hit me. Come on. Tap into who you always were meant to be." That match with Cena, it jarred Cena so much character-wise. After the match, he had to go run and hug the nearest kid. So that's kind of Bray Wyatt syndrome in that losing is ultimately winning for the character because the character didn't care about winning the match, but making his point. So we need to move on to a couple our last two because we're hitting 2 hours almost. Finish these last two. I don't care. We can go all day as far as I'm concerned.
It's all the same to me, man.
I just know this. I ain't listening to no 3 hour podcast personally,
Oh hell
so
no, no, oh hell
I ain't gonna make nobody listen to 3 hour podcast.
no.
Let's knock out these last two real quick. They're
Yeah.
two real quick hits. Number one, Brian and Kane are back together as Team Hell No. What do you think about that?
You know, my instant thought was, damn you, WWE, because I was actually at a point where I was honestly on board with Dr. Shelby coming to mediate Bayley and Sasha. I was totally for that life. And then Kane came back. But no, my immediate thought was, I'm going to turn 28 years old this year. I came of age as a wrestling fan at the beginnings of the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
I vividly remember The Undertaker first telling the tale of his brother Kane
yeah.
and Kane debuting. And I vividly remember Kane and X-Pac, Kane versus Big Show, Kane and Undertaker again,
Kane Triple
Kane
H.
versus DX, Kane and Triple H,
Yeah.
Kane and Benoit. I vividly remember the greatness that was Kane. And Kane has stepped into that same strata as Undertaker of legends that it hurts my feelings to see now. Because seeing them as such a shell of what they used to be is sad for me.
Okay.
And that was my big thought. I don't really care one way or the other about Team Hell No reuniting because it makes sense for the story. Brian needs somebody to partner with if he's going to go up against Bludgeons, and if they don't want it to be Miz, it makes sense. Kane can come, he can do this thing real quick, and then he's so part-time at this point he can go back to being the mayor of bumfuck Tennessee.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I don't really care. For me, it's more just watching a legend in their twilight is always sad.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If you're a football fan, watching Brett Favre's last couple of years were tough to watch. I get
Absolutely.
it. I'm a Suns fan, so seeing Steve Nash play one last season with purple and gold on killed me. Um, so let me tell you why I'm behind it. And I'm 100% with you on the legend thing and seeing a guy so often, kind of Ric Flair syndrome, if you will, is really off-putting. But let me tell you why I'm behind it. And I also want to note that I understand that the last few years between Kane and Daniel Bryan have been very contentious on screen. Kane chokeslammed when he was general manager, and uh, when he was world champ, Kane was the guy who was attacking him and chasing his wife and all that. I get it, but uh, let me tell you this: I don't want Daniel Bryan wrestling personally. I can't speak for anybody else. It hurts my heart to see him still wrestle. It's tough for me to watch him wrestle. I understand that he's cleared medically, which doesn't really mean shit. It just means that, oh well, you passed the test. I also understand that this is his goal and his dream and what he wants to do, so he's a grown man, he can do what he wants. But it hurts my heart because I know the risk he's taking, and I know he has a family. So
Yeah, when
because I don't want to,
last week I held my breath.
when Joe dropped on his head, absolutely. So with that being said, that takes away my interest in seeing him wrestle. I'm watching him. He's having great matches, but I don't care to watch him. You put him with Kane, you give me nostalgia. You remind me of some good times. You remind me of the fun. You just talked about Joy Ryan, and wrestling can still be fun. There's one thing Team Hell No is, it's fun, right? Um, and so now I'm invested in Brian again because you've given me something to offset the fear, right? You've
So he's
given me
become for you what Jeff Hardy is for me.
yes,
Love Jeff Hardy. I'm from the Charlotte area. I love Jeff Hardy. But as soon as his matches are over and I remember that he limps so badly because he's fucked his body up so much, I am reminded why I don't really want Jeff to wrestle.
that's a very wonderful it's a very wonderful comparison, and both of them are wrestling on SmackDown prominently, which is interesting. But I do, before we move on, the last thing I want to talk about is Shinsuke getting bit by the dog. That's bullshit. But I do want to also mention that a lot of people, Rich in particular from One Nation Radio, are upset because they feel like Brian is being diminished.
Here's what I'm gonna say to those people. I got two things to say to those people. The first one is Daniel Bryan has not signed a contract extension. We know that because that darn sure would have been reported by now. So he has not signed a contract extension, and his contract ends this summer.
Yes.
So if I'm WWE, why in the hell would I put this man in these big main event matches and give him this big spotlight if there is still every possibility out there that maybe he decides, I've only got a few matches left in me anyway. I'm going to leave and go wrestle some of these indie guys that I've been wanting to wrestle for a while.
Peace out.
And just go. Because he could do that. So there's that. But number two, Daniel Bryan opened SmackDown and closed SmackDown this week, so I don't want to hear shit about how Daniel Bryan's being used.
Stop speaking truth.
He opened and closed the show. He was in the middle of the show. He's not the general manager anymore, but he's still the biggest pop in the show. SmackDown is not the house that AJ built anymore. SmackDown is the Daniel Bryan show.
Well, it was never the house AJ built. It's the house that AJ rented from Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, this is the Daniel Bryan show. So, I don't want to hear none of that how he's being used nonsense, because it's not like Daniel Bryan won every match before. The whole Yes movement was that Daniel Bryan lost all the fucking time.
But he deserved to be in a better situation, yeah.
Exactly. So, what is this nonsense? And besides, they're showing you where it's going. We all know that no matter what, whether it's at SummerSlam or he signs the extension, that all of this is building to him and The Miz. And it will probably be for the title.
So let's talk about let's talk about the title. Let's talk about, because that's what they want him to be champion or in the title picture.
He's not going to be champion. Miz is going to be champion, and he's same.
But let's talk about reasons from a company perspective. And I know fans don't like to think about things from a business perspective, but that's what we're here for. I just talked about how I don't want to see him wrestle because I'm scared for his injuries, right? We know what happened with Bryan after he won the World Heavyweight Championship. We also know what happened when he came back the next year. Royal Rumble happened. It happened. Wrestled Roman. That happened. Won the IC title. Then held it for a month or so, and then got hurt again. Right? So let's just hypothetically say that they were prepared to give him the championship. Bryan's been cleared for 3 months now. Has it even been 3?
Not really.
Let's just for the purposes of this conversation say it's been 3 months, right? The past 2 times you've given him championship, it was 3 months and he was gone. So don't you think you want to see him actually wrestle consistently for a few months before you give him the strap, and then have him have to get hurt again, God forbid, knock on wood, and then have to do it all over again?
Well, and also, I know that the fans are just as bad about this as WWE is when we talk about kayfabe only matters when we say it matters.
Yeah.
The fans are just as guilty of that, because also, let's not forget, Bryan wasn't involved as an active competitor for over a year. You can't just pretend all those people that had leapt over him in line aren't still ahead. Just because if I'm in line for a table at a restaurant, if I leave, I don't get to come back and stay in the same spot in line.
Oh, no, better one. If you reach a level at a job and you leave it, and you come back 3 years later, they're not going to give you the same position.
That's just not how it works. So, all these people that are above him right now in that push for the title, they should be, because they've been on the show every week for a year competing.
He's on the show with AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, The Miz,
Rusev.
Samoa Joe, Rusev, Jeff Hardy, Andrade Cien,
the entirety of New Day.
Randy Orton's still on the show.
The Bar separately. Sheamus and Cesaro as individuals.
And he jumps all of that because people like saying yes. And this isn't the Daniel Bryan hate period, because I know that's
I like D. Bryan. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah, but I'm
But
synonymous
I'm
with my name in wrestling lore is synonymous with hating Daniel Bryan. It's never the case. But I'm always the one that's got to take these, got to give these takes because other people are so scared or don't want to.
yeah, like I mean, AJ Styles is the champion right now, but Daniel Bryan is the main event.
Now imagine if Daniel Bryan got a title shot. Okay, but then y'all will still be claiming that Rusev is being buried.
No, if Daniel Bryan got a title shot, not only would they complain about that, they'd complain because Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles in 2018 won't be as good as Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles in 2005.
It's always something. It's always something. Well, let's end with I like to end normally happily, but man, Shinsuke got bit by a dog, bro.
Fucking like, ain't
By
that some
a
shit?
police dog.
Like, ain't that some shit? Like,
And here's the cold part about it. You know where they're at this weekend? They're in Japan. So he might not be able to wrestle in Japan. The one time they go in a year. Because a police dog bit him, dog. That's cold. Oh,
just attacked by a police dog. Well, and the worst part is, this is America, so you know as soon as he got done being attacked by the dog, they searched him like he was some kind of fucking felon.
he is brown, so
That's what I'm saying. Person of color attacked by police dog. I'm surprised it didn't end in an arrest.
you know what? I want to laugh, but it's not a joke. That's the
It's
truth.
not. Like, that's the sad part.
The
Like,
truth.
that's the sad part. It's so fucked up that it should be funny,
Oh
but
my
it's
God.
so real.
Yeah, we bite you, then we search you.
And then blame you for getting bit.
Yeah, well, you should have been there. I work here. The fuck?
Well, that's what you get for being in the dog's way.
What the dog says goes.
Shouldn't have stepped wrong. You provoked him.
Why were you looking at the dog in his eyes?
Sorry, Shinsuke. He doesn't like that you don't speak English.
Okay, that's it. We gotta go. We gotta move. Before we got here, man, anything else you want to say? Did you have any predictions for Ring of Honor tonight or tomorrow, whenever we watch?
Predictions. I predict that Dalton Castle loses the title, but I don't know to which member of the Bullet Club.
Marty Scurll is your new champion. I'm calling it now because Cody has already. So Cody's wrestling for the Ring of Honor title now. July, what is it, 7th?
Mm-hmm.
He's wrestling for the IWGP Heavyweight title, and then All In he's supposed to wrestle for the NWA title. So he's already said it's the Triple Crown. So I see him losing, and
Well,
I see
I don't
Marty
know.
losing.
I could see him winning tonight though, because I know that Aldis at one point had said he's only going to put the title on the line for Cody if Cody wins the Ring of Honor title.
Yeah, but then I feel like that for BTE, that's way too perfectly set. Like they have way too many turns and twists in their stories for it to be that perfect.
Not doubting. I haven't seen Alibi yet, so I'm 1 week behind on BTE. But
Oh, watch it. Yeah. Yeah. BTE is single-handedly the reason why I understand what's going on in New Japan. Besides keeping a strong style. Because that's literally the only.
BTE is the best thing about Ring of Honor. Like,
Yeah.
look at SoCal Uncensored. They got way more over once they started doing shit on BTE. Look at Beretta and Chucky T. They got way more over when they started doing shit on BTE.
Jay Lethal is starting to make a comeback now because it's doing the Macho Man stuff again.
Machismo, doing the Black Machismo.
Flip Gordon is a certified headliner now because of BTE.
Yeah, like BTE is a great example of how to properly book your talent, Ring of Honor. Take examples from the people that you employ.
This I'm not gonna name this the Golden Lovers episode. I'm gonna name this the Kyle Hayes Ring of Honor episode.
But I don't. I want them to do well. I just wish
man.
they would emphasize the positive and stop sucking ass.
You know what I'm gonna do, man? I'm gonna bring you on the show whenever it's time for a Ring of Honor show and just let you let loose, and then we're gonna and then we'll preview the show.
Yep. I'll be your Ring of Honor guy. I can be like that YouTube series, Everything Wrong with Ring of Honor, best in the world.
I appreciate you being on with me, man. Tell them where they can find you.
All right, you can find me on Twitter. My handle's @Dr. S'mores. That's capital D as in doctor. Capital S as in s'mores, no spaces, no periods.
Okay, and you can always find both of us in the Wrestling Squared Circle. Kyle's a little more active than I am, but it's on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at it's Raycash, Rey as in Mysterio, Cash as in dollars. The show's at Outsiders Edge SS. I say this every show. I mean it. Eventually, we are going to start tweeting from that account again. One day, soon, this lifetime. But yeah. Hey man, give us a listen at Social Suplex Podcast Network. That's at Social Suplex on Twitter. Anywhere you can listen to your podcast, you can find us. Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, Podcast Addict, everything. If you put your ear to the window and listen really hard, really hard, you'll hear Rich talking. Like you can find us. Um, you can follow One Nation Radio at One Nation Radio. You can follow Ricky and Clive at Ricky and Clive. You can follow Keeping It Strong Style, the New Japan Show at KI Strong Style. You can follow the Indie Show, Grown Men Watch This Shit at Grown Men Pod. Um, oh, I write column for the Chair Shot. Did I tell you that? Yeah, I write for the Chair Shot. Um, I don't know if you guys have kind of kept up with me over the past couple of weeks, but I've had a bit of a falling out of love with wrestling, and it's not wrestling's fault. It's a myriad of other reasons. But we're still dating, right? We're still in a relationship.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah, Facebook is complicated. So I didn't have a calendar this week, but I plan on having one coming this week. Um, I've been very tentative about doing podcasts, but Kyle's my brother, Karl's my brother, so I'm always loyal to those guys. I'm gonna be
Don't
on.
we're counseling him through this tough time.
Man,
We're going
look,
to work through his fan base.
man, look. If I was in South Carolina, I would be on Kyle's couch right now, and he would have like a pad and glasses on. Um, but no. Thank you guys for listening. Follow us, listen to us, and I just want to remind you guys that if you did not like the show, you have to remember we're following our dreams, and we tried. So you can't hate us, right? Because we gave it our all. Have a good night.
And also, if you hate us, we don't really care.
Well, look, you've listened to me long enough to know I don't.
No fucks given.
Appreciate it, guys.